This podcast has stories of real-life events and true crime that happens every day. These stories may contain adult language and graphic or disturbing details not suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
132 in Bush, I've got him at gunpoint. Check your left phone for going to full evacuation at this time.
They're pulling them out.
10-1-1. Advise ready for escape.
God!
Tom?
And I'm Chuck.
And there he is. And is your delay bad or no? Are you good?
It's a little. We're working on it. It's a work in progress.
Work in progress. Okay. But we're here.
Yes.
So
we are here.
Dude, it's been like we've been cranking along with our episodes. The only thing that the only thing that I don't think we have is it was a rough December for Locker Room with Matt's work schedule and travel schedule and all that kind of stuff. But we're hoping that by the time this airs, we're back on an even keel. Matt's work schedule's been crazy. Is what it is.
Yeah, I mean it's the holidays. It's to be expected, guys. And we're trudging along. But good news is War Stories is not going to miss a beat right now because we have so many back catalog stuff. It's great. We got a lot of good things coming.
Yeah.
A lot of Navy SEALs coming at your way. It's going to be a good year. 2025. Hopefully it's not a dumpster fire.
Well, I mean,
looking forward to it.
Far so good.
Yeah.
We got through the 6th of January without anyone pooping on anyone's desk.
Yeah.
So
what was funny? Last night, I actually watched the 2020 year in review and Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And it was about how they meddled in the election and fucked everything up and made the stuff for the January 6th people in the riots and stuff like the dude with the horns and stuff. Like they made it was just a great episode. It's funny. It just so happened to be so close to that date. It was great.
So it's
good times.
It's funny is that I have a friend and I respect him. He was a brother in law enforcement, and we worked together a lot. And I totally respect the dude. However, we still have some opposing views on some of the more finer points of election coverage and political affiliations, and I'm a little more skeptical and a little more jaded, I think, than he is. He still seems to think that the Biden-Harris administration was totally fine and didn't see any problems. January 6th was the darkest day in American history. This is a cop who's now he's a DA investigator. Somehow he's gone to the side where he believes that Harris Waltz was the way to go. Fine. Everybody has their own right to their own opinion.
Entitled to their opinion.
Sure.
However,
he took the bait. He posted something on January 6th about, see you guys, look at that. Nobody stormed the guy. And he was trying to, high road and say, ha, 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 when it's the Republicans that cried and stormed the Capitol and the Democrats, blah, blah, blah. He was taking a poke at his conservative friends. I'm not scared. I took a poke back and I said, there was also no FBI agents hiding in the crowd trying to,
Yeah, I was wonder you're going to bring up the Fed boys.
Some levels of entrapment or insert informants into. So I was just baiting him. It was pretty funny. But the
crazy thing is,
I do.
Is that in every major occurrence or an unusual, that's not even unusual, major occurrence because it's pre-planned, January 6th, we already know people are going to be there. So every major law enforcement agency that has any type of riot control or undercover worth assault, they will actually embed in the crowd. And so no different from the city boys to the Fed boys, they're going to embed into the crowd and they're going to try to assimilate to what the crowd looks like and is acting like.
Yeah.
However, if you take it to a point where you're doing shit, that's causing reactions. It's a level of entrapment that you should not be doing. You should just be there to observe and report, like Paul Blart with his roll of fucking quarters.
Yeah.
Cops, but you're not supposed to be cops at that time. Act fucking like it, but don't do entrapment shit. Like, it's not good. You'll get tore up in court.
Yes, entrapment's not good for sure. But also, here's the thing, and I told my buddy, I said, is part of what I said in the message. I said, pardon me for being skeptical, but I worked undercover and I've worked with federal agencies. But I also want to say this on our podcast because I've said this publicly. Right. It is not the rank and file federal agent. It is not we've spoken to ATF guys on this podcast. We spoke to a guy who's been at Ruby. Right. We've spoken. I've worked with some great federal agents. So for all the people that are the 3-letter Fed boys, blah 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 blah. Yeah, okay. I grew up with a dad who said FBI stood for famous but incompetent. Here's the thing: your average FBI agent is an honorable law enforcement officer.
100%. Yeah,
that is not when high level people talk about the FBI and about it being this or it being that or being skewed. Usually they're talking about the bureaucracy involved and the politics involved. And I'm going to tell you right now, your average rank and file FBI agent who's out there doing the Lord's work, investigating crimes every day, they're not the ones making those decisions. They are not involved in policy.
However, I have a caveat to that. I've met 2 types of FBI agents. I've met the one who's a little bit more wiser and older, very humble, down to earth, straight shooter, no nonsense. Then I met the younger generation, the Zennials or the Millennials coming the fuck in, who just got out of college, who have a 4-year degree. That's it. No, nothing else. And they're getting picked up. And I met 2 of them that were in their mid to late 20s, like maybe like 27 or whatever. They were the douchiest boys I've ever met in my life. And I say boys because they didn't act like men. They acted like
that
boys.
might be.
And that was just a generational thing and a young, like a generational and a young age type of thing, because I had so much respect, or I still do have respect for the FBI. Yes, they're feds, but they're cops, and we have to give them their due. I mean, they're no different than me and you, right? They're still going out there to do the law and
put on the badge. They put on the badge.
They put their pants on the same way.
They signed up to protect, the law. So that's don't diss the average, and don't ever think we are dissing the average rank and file FBI, because 100% we are not. That is not what we do here. Just like CHP, we give CHP a hard time. I worked with some
AAA with a gun.
Some AAA with a gun.
Don't ever tell that to your dad who's CHP in an argument. He'll leave your house.
But we also dog on SROs, and I know some SROs that are out there doing the Lord's work. I know CHP officers that are dyed-in-the-wool hardcore street cops. They just happen to work for the Highway Patrol. So when you hear us, ragging on people, giving people a hard time, you should know, if you're a cop, if you're a firefighter, if you're a veteran, you should know that it's done in the same spirit where the Marine Corps and the Navy razz each other. It's done in the same spirit where the fire department and the police department razz each other. We call out what we see when we see it, but don't think that means we don't support the rank and file. And I'll tell you what, Chuck, our guest this week, I think he can speak to the average mindset of the rank and file FBI agent, because our guest this week has actually been to the FBI National Academy.
Yes, that is fucking awesome. And I can't wait to hear his insight, but he can also speak to the rank and file of metropolitan policing and city policing,
because he's risen from the rank and file to become a chief of police. Alert the media. We've got another chief that has agreed to come and screw around with us on our show. But you know what else he understands? He understands the veteran mindset, because our guest was also in the Navy. So I think we should bring in our guest. And I want to introduce everybody to JT. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thank you guys for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on.
Sir.
We always kind of giggle when we get a chief on our show, just because, we're such idiots. We're rank and file cops. We're, I loved the job, and I don't know that I would ever want to have ascended to the position of chief of police. So I commend you for doing it, and I hope that you are the kind of chief you always wanted to work for.
That's exactly why I did it. Along the way, I got really tired of working for bad bosses and seeing people do things that, I didn't think were right by officers. And so you can stand back and you can complain and you can be miserable that you're working for bad leaders.
Mhm.
Or the other alternative that I saw was, well, I can do something about it. I can go to
That's
school, I can go to
amazing.
these trainings, I can do these things, and maybe I can do it better. I don't know until I try. And
I love
it's
that.
really the
I love how easy you made it sound too.
leadership's not hard. It's a really
No.
simple concept.
Mhm.
But I will say, I heard you guys talking about, rank and file officers and, leadership or admin or whatever. And I can say that everything changed when I became a chief. I'll give you an example. Like,
Sure.
it's one thing if you're a sergeant, you're a lieutenant, it's one thing to recommend discipline. This
Mhm.
person did this thing, violated this policy or whatever, and this is what I recommend. Recommending something doesn't take a lot.
Sure.
It's just words on a page, but when you
Right.
bear the ultimate responsibility for somebody's professional trajectory, their career, their livelihood, and I'm telling you, everything changes when you sit in the chief seat. So what I thought it was going to be like ascending to that position and becoming a chief, I've enjoyed it in so many ways, and I'm really thankful for the opportunity. But it is not what I thought it was when I was an officer looking up at the chief.
And
I can understand that.
yeah, and what about it isn't what you thought it was? Like what specifically?
Well, the burden, the weight of the decisions that you have to make. We're all accustomed to making decisions in the field, and I'm sure you and
Right.
your listeners are well aware that there's always going to be a right decision and a wrong decision, but oftentimes the most important thing is that you just make one. We can't sit here and guess or wonder or wait on somebody else to do it. You have to, take action, make a decision. And, that's great. But I think as you promote the weight and the importance and the cascade of effects that happen because of your decisions are really, really heavy.
Right.
What I was not prepared for was to go home and just be overwhelmed with empathy and compassion and worry for the people in my command. I knew that, let's say it was discipline. I know that the discipline's right. They screwed up. They knew that they
Mhm.
screwed up, but I knew that the decision that I had to make was going to change their life.
Mm.
Man, I
That must be
would
tough.
agonize over those decisions, and you knew what was right. The decision was right,
Mhm.
but it's all the heart and the empathy that goes into making the right decision that was so hard, and I was not prepared for that.
I'll
Wow.
say this. It sounds like, well, so I don't think that what you're talking about, and I'll be the a-hole. I don't know that that's common to every chief. I love hearing you say it. I think it's important. But
Yeah.
I would also be willing to bet that just as much as you take that decision to heart and the burden of it, I would be willing to bet there is another percentage, and I don't know if it's the same, if it's less, if it's more. If I were guessing, I would say it's less. I would err on the side of most human beings who get into law enforcement would lean towards the side to one degree or another that you're talking about. But there is probably a chunk of chiefs and administrators out there who are incredibly cavalier about their people under them because
Right.
they don't think in terms of their people. They think in terms of their career.
And that's a shame.
Yeah.
I'm not
I've seen it.
here for me. I'm here to shepherd the people who
love
are
that.
working here, and maybe that's part of the problem.
No, I
Maybe,
think it's a huge part of the problem.
we need.
You must be a God-fearing and God-loving man.
I am.
That right there,
It makes a big difference.
all for me, because I have dealt with people who do this job for personal gain, and that's from the very bottom trying to raise to the top. And I've talked to him, and I, long ago when I would get people that would come in, I would kind of interview them on the fly. They would, I would just ask them questions, and a lot of them who were brand new, like probationary officers and things like that. I would be like, hey, what's your goal for this department? And they would tell me, and I'm like, get the fuck out. That's the wrong way to do it. You should not be doing that. You should not. That's not the way, because all they wanted to do was spend as little time in the field as possible and try to rise as fast as they could, as quickly as they could. And I was like, that is the wrong mindset. You should be doing this job because you have the compassion to do the job, because you want to help the people. And the chiefs of police should be wanting to be helping their officers as well as the citizens that they are in charge of protecting. That is the most important thing. Monetary shit should come later, and so should your career advancement after you make chief. Because let's be honest, where are you going after chief? Only to a chief of a bigger agency or to a 3-letter agency.
On the lecture
That's really
circuit.
the only place that you have to go. And I think that you're doing it the right way, and you are a copper's cop, which is what it sounds like to me.
Well, I appreciate that. If you're a chief,
you're going to have to move to Texas to get him to hire you. I'm just saying.
well, being called a cop's cop is probably the greatest compliment you could give me as a chief.
Isn't it?
That
Yes.
is always the way that I would want to be described. That's the place that I try to make decisions from.
Right.
So I really appreciate you saying that. That means a lot.
Well, you're welcome.
So let me ask you this about, so I say I kind of understand, and we haven't even gotten into how you gotten into law enforcement yet, but I'm in a position now. So I rank and file guy, loved being rank and file. Got to the level where I could be acting watch commander, field training officer, field supervisor, all that kind of stuff. And it did instantly change the metric for me. And I don't know, maybe it was just the way I'd been brought up in a cop family, but understanding that once you're the supervisor, once you're in charge, your word carries more weight, right? And I recently said to somebody, I said, you got to understand, like, when you're a rank and file officer, you have to eat shit because shit rolls downhill, right? But the higher up you promote, you still have to eat it. It just gets much bigger. The problems that you have to eat shit over, like, you're not eating shit over bungling a call. You're doing it about going hundreds of thousands of dollars over budget, or hiring somebody that you should never have hired, or not insufficiently disciplining somebody, or overly disciplined. Like, the stakes are much higher, right? And as I got to that level, I understood my word carried weight. By telling somebody they could do something, I owned it. Like, that was my decision too now, is because I'd given them permission. And so if it goes sideways, it's on me, right? So anything you do, if it goes sideways, it's on you. There's nowhere else to kick it up to, right? Unless the mayor or the city manager or somebody orders you to do it. And, even that's kind of a difficult thing, because in some places they can't order chiefs to do, so I would imagine that now that I'm in a position where I actually have, regular supervisory roles and running budgets and doing kind of that administrator's type role, I imagine that I had to separate myself from my guys, but I still have other people at my level that are my peers. They're in different departments, but they're peers. At your level, the only other peers you have are other chiefs, right? So I never understood, chief must be a pretty lonely job at the agency, because you had to sacrifice one of the best, you had to somewhat sacrifice one of the best parts of being in law enforcement, which is the camaraderie.
Exactly.
Right? You walk into a room, conversation stops. You people are laughing, they see you, they stop laughing, right? Does that suck as much as I think it would?
Oh man,
the weight of that.
It's the worst. It's the worst. And this isn't, I don't want anybody to feel bad, for me or any other chief, but I can say it is a super lonely place to be. When you're on the street, if there's something on your heart or something on your mind, you'll blade up with somebody and you can let it out. You can talk about it. You can get advice. But when you're the chief, that circle of people that you can go to is really, really small.
Right.
I'm fortunate. I've got a great city manager. She's married to a police officer. She served in the Air Force as a military police officer. So
Is she
we're-
married to one of your cops? Because that
no,
would be
no,
okay.
an officer from
Ooh.
another department, and recently promoted to a deputy chief level. So she's great, and I'm really fortunate, and I
You
know
are.
that I'm really fortunate to have a city manager that I can talk to about things. But there's very few people within the department that I can have those conversations with. Of course, my assistant chief, we can visit and
Yeah, a little bit,
bounce things off of each other.
Right.
Obviously, I lean on my wife a lot
I bet.
for wisdom and things. But when you consider that chief network, that group of peers that you should be able to go to,
Mhm.
you can't. There are a few peers that you're going to be able to see eye to eye with, that you can reach out to, that you trust. But there is a lot of jockeying for position at
I was
the
about to
executive
ask that. Yeah.
And so some people want to watch you fail. And so if they know that you're in a tough spot, and that if they were able to give you advice that helped you overcome it, or be successful with whatever it is that
Right.
you're dealing with, if that would make you look good, then they're not going to do that. And that represents the darkness at this level that I really think we've got to get rid of. Chiefs, like officers, need to understand that if I'm successful, you're successful. And if
Right.
you're in a tough spot and I can help you, that helps us all, be better.
Right.
So it is lonely at the top, but it's worth it. It's worth it. I believe that it's an honor and a privilege to endure hard things for the benefit of other people. So it's temporary. It's not going to be forever.
Oh,
It's
man.
my time. It's my privilege to be in this role for however long I'm supposed to be here.
Wow.
And if I can leave it better than I found it, if I can mentor up and coming chiefs or leaders that can carry this forward and do a great job, then it's all been worth it.
So
I'll
I have a
say-
statement and a question.
Okay.
One, you should do a TED Talk to Chiefs because they really need that shit. Two, the question would be, now I lost my train of thought. Gosh darn it. But my question, would be,
Sorry, I have.
let's
while
come
you
back to
think
it.
of it, I'll tell you this. So this is. I looked this up while we're talking because we haven't even gotten in your story, and it's already fascinating. Texas has, as of 2019,
got it.
per FBI statistics, Texas has roughly 86,000 sworn law enforcement officers in the state of Texas. They only have 734 individual law enforcement agencies in the state, which means in the state where you work, you only have 733 other peers out of 86,000 badge-carrying, gun-toting police officers. Where I worked in California, it's even worse. 121,000-ish cops in the whole state, right? The number of agencies, 469. So if you're a chief in California, there's only 468 other people that carry your same weight and rank. If you get into other states, you get into where I live now, Idaho, right?
Or like what,
There's
20?
only there's 6,000 cops in the state of Idaho, and there's only 110 law enforcement agencies. So there's only 109 other chiefs that you can be. Like, you could literally know every other chief on a first name basis, and you're separated by like miles and miles and miles of. So I can imagine it's a lonely road.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Now my question for you,
pile guys, I know you're not out there. You're not out there like playing violin for JT the Chief here.
I understand. It's part of it.
So back to my original question that I completely brain farted on. I wrote it down. Basically, it's are you sworn, like appointed, or are you voted in by the people?
Can I guess?
Sure.
Since you're not a sheriff, I would guess that you are hired by either the city council or the city manager or the mayor or governing body that's put together by those people. I would doubt you have a police commission. So I'm guessing that there was an interview panel that consisted of like the mayor, a city manager, another chief of police, or two other chiefs, or something like that. And that they hired you, and that you serve as an employee of the city manager and or mayor, and that you're not elected. Is that?
That's correct. I'm not elected. I was
Ding, ding.
appointed
That's what I
am
thought.
appointed by the city manager.
Right.
Does it make
And
it better
it's
to be a
interesting-
chief in Texas because you're appointed and not voted in? Because out here, it's very difficult for a chief to do his job, being appointed as opposed to being a sheriff and being voted in by your constituents. Does it make it easier in Texas to do your job because you kind of have like-minded ideals? Or is it very political and hard to kind of do what you want? You kind of have to walk on eggshells because it's political.
So I think anytime you serve in a chief executive role, there is always going to be an element of politics. I don't think there's any way that you can
It's a
escape
political
that.
job.
But
Yeah.
being someone who is not elected, and it's important to point out that the city manager is also not elected.
No.
We're both hired, or I'm appointed by the city manager. She's appointed by the city council. So there's some buffer there, and the fact that we're both, not elected officials does help because we're only accountable to 7 people, 6 council members and the mayor. So in that sense, it's good. Where we have it really good in Texas is we enjoy a great deal of support from the community.
Yeah.
Almost, I would say 99 times out of 100, if I take an item to council, put it on the council agenda and bring it to them for a vote, 99 times out of 100, they're going to vote 7-0 in favor of whatever it is that I brought forward. We have developed that level of trust with them, so that if they're hearing from me that we really need this and the city manager agrees, then chances are they're going to move forward with it. Now, that's an incredible thing to have.
Right.
And we have to steward that. We have to cherish that, because if we violate their trust one time, it's all over. So we're very careful. We work together very closely to make sure that when we bring something forward, that it's really well thought out, that the city manager is comfortable with it, because we know if we put it in front of the council, chances are they're going to vote in favor.
Well, I'll say this as an officer, I used to call all my sergeants base coaches, and I said the reason you're a base coach is because you're on the field and you're in the uniform, but you're not actually playing the sport.
That's a great analogy. I've never heard that.
So, as a chief, I will call you the team manager, because again, you're in the uniform, but you're not on the field. You're in the dugout and you're running the team. You're still on the team. You're still in uniform, but your responsibility is now to get the right people in the right positions on the field during the game, right? So I want to now hear from you, JT, the officer. I want to talk about, because we don't even have time to get into your we're going to have you back. I'm already saying that because we have to talk about your time in the Navy too, but we didn't even get into how you became a cop. I want to hear about some of your experiences as a police officer, or something you want to share about your time as a cop that really shaped your view of law enforcement and that you've carried with you into your chiefdom.
Okay. Well, there's 2 things that I want to talk to you about. The first has to do with me as a person. I came into the profession one way. Over time, I changed, and I ultimately didn't like who I had become. And so I had to go back. So that kind of took me on a journey that's led me to where I'm at now. And then I'll talk about a formative incident that I went through that kind of shaped me as an officer as well. So I'll start kind of with the personal journey, and then I'll conclude with the on-duty incident.
Sure.
So I am very fortunate. I was raised by a loving family, present father, middle class suburban Texas. Everything was great. I didn't want for anything. I'm not saying that, we were like wealthy or anything, but I was well taken care of. If I needed something, my parents were able to provide that. So I do not have a dark and gloomy past. I'm very blessed to have had a stable upbringing. With that, I haven't had a lot of experiences like some of the people we encounter when we're out on the street.
Mm.
So it makes it difficult to relate sometimes, or I discovered that once I got into the career. But I started it at 19 years old as a dispatcher. And I won't go into how I became a dispatcher.
Yeah,
But
you have to say that for your return visit.
yes. So I'm 19 years old, freshly 19, right out of high school. I'm taking some classes at college, thinking about wanting to become a police officer. I get this dispatcher job. It was a small department, and one of the responsibilities that you had as a dispatcher was you had to look at these monitors that showed you what was going on in the jail. And so whenever they brought somebody in, you could see it and everything. And I distinctly remember the officers out on the street arrested somebody for drugs, and they brought him into the police station. I could see him on that camera come in, get handcuffed to the bench, the whole thing. In that moment, I remember feeling overwhelmed with empathy for that person that had just come in, because in my middle class vanilla upbringing, the worst thing that could ever happen to me was going to jail. I thought about the incredible disappointment that my dad would feel having to tell him, look at him, face him after making whatever colossal mistake I had made that led me to being in jail. It was the worst possible thing I could ever imagine. So I remember that person came in, I looked at them, I put myself in their position and thought, man, who is disappointed in you? Who are you going to have to tell this to? And how hard is that going to have to be for you? And fast forward, maybe 10 years, I've served in the military. I've come back, become a police officer. I'm a canine handler now, dealing with drug dealers all day, every day. And what has happened? I've become incredibly cynical. It's all about the fine for me. What can I put on the hood of the car? How many felonies can I rack up?
Yeah.
And I quit thinking about the people I was putting in the back of my car as humans. They were numbers. They were tick marks. They were ways for me to be successful.
They were stats.
To distinguish myself from my peers. Yeah. So I'm a high drive person. I want to be the leader in every category. And so I got to turn and burn these arrests. I got to find them. I got to book them. I got to write the report and get back out on the street. And one day I began to feel like I was losing the sense of fulfillment that I had when I became a police officer in the first place. And I had to ask myself, why is that? Where did you go wrong? Where did you lose this? And I thought back to that first day as a dispatcher, and I realized I've lost that. And so what I started doing is I started asking those people that I was putting in the back of my car, you got to drive to the jail. I started saying, hey, how did you get here? If you could go back in time and tell your younger self something that would help you avoid being in the back of my car right now, what would you say? And what I started to discover was that the people that were in the back of my car had horrible experiences, incredible trauma, things that I could never imagine. I was raped when I was 13 years old by my stepdad. I was, molested, by a school teacher. I watched my younger brother kill himself right in front of me. And I just can't get that image out of my mind. And so what it revealed to me was that these were real people struggling with real things, and their decision to use drugs or do whatever it was that led them to being in the back of my car was really
Mhm.
not a whole lot different than me saying, man, I've had a really long, hard day. I want to grab a drink, or I want to eat half a tub of ice cream. That thing inside of us that felt bad, that wanted some kind of comfort and relief,
Right.
was exactly the same. The only difference was the choice of substance. I was
Right.
not choosing to do something illegal where they were, but I found a common place where I could relate to them and get back to that empathy that I
Mhm.
had earlier on in my career. And when I did that, everything changed. Um, I'd moved into an interdiction unit, was leading a team of dog handlers, and I discovered interdiction for the protection of children. And
Oh wow.
Oh,
I found hundreds of pounds of drugs, hundreds, just loaded up trunks and tables with drugs, have all the trophy shots. It was fantastic. Found money, all kinds of things. None of that compares to saving or rescuing a child. And that brought me full circle back to what matters most, why I was doing what I was doing. Um, and that kind of takes me into the next part. So, almost 10 years ago, January 28th of 2015, I was a
Mhm.
sergeant canine handler. I had a new handler that was just back from training that was with me for FTO. We were out training, and it was a Wednesday because that's the day that all of our schedules overlapped, and so that's when we trained. While we were training, heard a call come out over the radio for a neighboring agency that was in a pursuit. Bad guy had displayed a firearm, pointed firearm at law enforcement officers, said, I'm not stopping, and took off, and it was heading our direction. And so I got on the radio, even though we were at training, and said, hey, do they want a dog in this pursuit? And they came back and said, yep, they want one. So we loaded up and we started heading that direction. We got there, and by the time we got there, bad guy had wrecked out, bailed out, ran off into the woods. The officers did a great job. They didn't pursue him. They set up a perimeter and waited on us to get there. So we got there. I linked up with 3 state troopers and the dog handler that I had in training was with me. So there were 5 of us total. We got our search team together. This was my second dog, and we had only been home from training for 7 weeks. So this dog is
wow.
green, and I'm looking for the opportunity for this dog to get its first street bite. That's really, really important for me as a handler to know how this dog is really going to perform. So I was excited. I was excited to go out on this track. So I get the team together. Dog, we're set up perfectly. So we're downwind of where the bad guy ran. So
Okay.
we're in a perfect scent cone. Got the dog out at the end of the leash, and we're cooking. Dog's tracking really well, head down, deep into the foliage and vegetation, and um, dog ends up leading me to a group of trees. And down at the base of these trees, there's a spot. Now, this is winter. This is January. All the trees have fallen. Down at the base of these trees is like an area that had been disturbed. It looked like there had been something that had made a home or a place underneath these trees and then left. So it was kind of hollow. The dog was all over it. So I was pretty confident that somebody had been there, but he's not there now. So now we're all kind of looking around going, where is this guy? Did we lose him? Did he, get up and get out of the perimeter or whatever?
Right.
So I put him back down. We track back out to a road, and there's a unit sitting there. So chances are he didn't get up and leave the perimeter, or he was out of the perimeter before we ever got it set up. So we hit the gravel road, and we kind of, our heads are hanging. We're disappointed. I'm disappointed. A million things are going through my mind because I know I'm being judged and my brand new dog is being judged right now. So if we don't perform, we don't find this bad guy, there are going to be people who think we're not any good. And that's not the reputation I wanted. I wanted to be a badass, and I wanted my dog to be known for being a badass.
Right. There's pride involved.
Correct. So we're walking back, and I'm kind of like, bummed. And so I'm talking to the other guys that were with me about what I saw, what the dog was doing. And as we're walking back in this clearing, so we kind of circled around the search area, and we're walking back towards where we started, trying to stay out of that perimeter so that we don't disturb anything. And all of a sudden we hear a rustle in the trees to our right. And I didn't know if it was a deer or what, but I knew that I heard it. And the dog kind of turns his attention over there. And I said, come on, boys, we're going to go in there and see what that was. So back out, dogs at the end of the leash, tracking really well. Now we're kind of across the scent cone now. We're going perpendicular to where we had gone before. There was a significant tree, and the dog made a hard upwind turn. And I know it was hard because I could hear the nylon of the long line brushing against the bark of the tree. So it's like,
so he's now hard right, and it's rubbing.
Wow.
on the tree.
You know exactly what you're talking about.
So the dog is out of my view. I know where he is because I know where the line is bent against the tree, but I can't see over there. It is thick briars and brush. This is not easy terrain to get through. So the dog goes around the tree. We're ducking and moving and trying to get through these briars. Eventually, I make the turn, but I know that the guys are still trying to get through all that stuff behind me.
Mm-hmm.
I move forward about 10, 15 yards, and all of a sudden, I can see the bad guy. He is beneath a group of trees that's eerily similar to the ones that we just saw. And he's completely covered in leaves. He's covered himself up completely. And all you can see is the outline of his face. He was in it. It reminded me of one of those sleeping bags that has the hood on it.
Yeah.
So like a mummy bag.
Your face. That's what he looked like. So, but it's danger close. I'm way too close to this guy. I mean, ordinarily, if I would have seen him, I'd have reeled the dog in. We would have taken cover. We would have given commands, but we are close. So I immediately pull out my gun and start hollering at this guy. Well, the guys behind me were not online. They were still trying to get through all that brush.
Mm.
So they hear me yelling. They hear the dog going crazy. And so they're trying to get up to me. And I'm looking at this guy, and he's not responding. And of course, you guys probably know this. All this is happening in milliseconds. I'm giving him commands. He's not doing anything. And then eventually he does this really eerie, like slow turn and like looks at me out of the corner of his eye. So I know that he knows that I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
I know that he knows what I'm asking him to do, and he's not doing it. Now, mind you, this guy had already displayed and pointed a gun at an officer.
Mm-hmm.
Taser's not going to be effective. I don't know if he's armed. Definitely not going to spray the guy. I've got a green dog that I'm looking to get a first bite on. So I quickly make the decision to send the dog to bite this guy.
Right.
I send my dog, Pepper was his name. Pepper goes in, and he's going to bite this guy kind of in the abdomen, arm, abdomen area, but the dog can't target because he can't see anything. The dude's completely covered up. And as soon as I send Pepper in, this guy sits up, comes across his body with a gun, and shoots my dog in the head.
Oh, no.
So, and it all happened in slow-mo. Here's the thing. I wasn't watching the bad guy. I was watching my dog. I was surprised by the gunshot. He's a brand new dog. I want to see him get his first bite.
Yeah.
I think everything's good. I'm not thinking that we're about to get in a gunfight.
Right.
I'm thinking I want to watch this dog connect. But then what I remember seeing is Pepper all of a sudden just went stiff. and started to fall over. And that directed my attention back at the bad guy. I already had my gun out. And at that point, I can see that he's got a gun, know that my dog just went down, know that he shot my dog, and that gun is now pointed in our direction.
Right.
Holy
You're
shit.
the target.
That's
So
scary.
I begin firing. My partners begin firing, and this guy goes down. I fired 4 times. And after the fact, they were able to tell me that I shot him in the hip, the chest, the head, and then one right over the top. So just kind of walked up the 4 shots. Everybody else had ARs. So they fired their ARs. I had one trooper that was right behind me that had a double feed and never fired at all. Come to find out.
Shit.
So, there's leaves everywhere. The dust settles. And now here I am trying to deal with my dog that's out of training 7 weeks.
Oh,
So the first thing that
must
I
have been
did,
so rough.
I stepped over the bad guy to confirm that he had a gun. In my mind, I needed to see that to make sure that I shot somebody who was shooting at me. So I do a quick kind of a replay in my mind, confirm that he had a gun, and then immediately turn my attention to my partner and the guys that were with me. Everybody was good. Of course, we're all shaken. And then I remember one of the guys, he was screaming about trying to get Pepper some help. And I just said, dude, he's done. He's dead. Just stop.
Yeah.
Let's calm down. This is a somber moment. There's nothing we can do. So then, we're in the middle of the woods. It's odd, but the first thing I did was I called my canine trainer back in Indiana that I had just gotten this dog from. And this is so weird, like in the moment, but I said, hey, bro, Pepper just got killed. I need a new dog. I didn't call my wife. I didn't try to get out on the radio. That's the first thing I did. Hey, bro, my dog just got killed. I need a new one. Then, people start showing up.
But that's compartmentalization, right? You don't have time in that moment to deal with the loss of your partner. You're thinking in terms of the nuts and bolts, right?
Yeah, logic.
You compartmentalize. You don't have time to deal with the emotion of it.
Yeah.
Right. So you're in work mind.
Yeah.
Right.
You're in work mode.
Like,
right.
So
it's like when your gun goes down.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like when your gun goes down, you need to get it back up and serviceable quick because you're going to have to take it out the next day, So you're in your mind, you're in work mode, right? Shit hasn't hit you. You're in shock. The only thing you can think about is, fuck, my dog's dead. How the hell am I going to operate as a canine handler?
Right.
I need a dog. And, and I bet you once you got home, you're like, fuck, that's my dog. And then you probably broke down.
Here's what happened next. So in Texas, the Texas Rangers came in and investigated the officer involved shooting. And I can't say enough.
Protocol?
For the agency that I was with, yes.
Got it. Okay.
It's just that unbiased kind of, neutral party that comes in to take a look at it. So
right. Yeah, no, I get it. Because our DA's office had an OIS unit, and they would send the DA's office handled all OISs in our county.
Right.
Because unless it was them.
Right.
Unless the DA investigator shot somebody.
These Rangers come in and they start marking the scene. They put their, the cones and the flags and everything, but they never made me leave. They let me stay by my dog's side the whole time.
Right.
They took their pictures, they marked everything, and I'm in all of them.
Yeah.
Then they're ready to start moving people and packing up the bad guy. And so they brought me the body bag and they said, hey, do you want to do your partner? And I said, absolutely, I do. Mm-hmm. So I took Pepper, I put him in the body bag. They said, hey, this is a tag that has to go on there. Do you want to fill it out? And I said, yes, I do. So I filled it out. Wow. And they said, okay, we got to get out of here. So I picked him up in that body bag, and the other officers that had come had driven my unit to a different area, and they had all lined up. And then we're in the middle of nowhere.
That's beautiful.
We are out in the woods, and these officers from everywhere had lined up so that when I walked out of the woods carrying my partner, I could walk through them saluting to put my partner in the car, which is what I did.
Wow.
Now, what you guys or maybe your viewers, I'm not sure if you've ever experienced a canine death or not, but just like humans, these dogs have to have an autopsy, and for animals, it's called the necropsy.
Yeah.
And we needed that for our case. We had to get that evidence. We had to, do the ballistics. Like, we needed that. So the sheriff, I was working for a sheriff's office at the time. He called me up and he said, "Hey, we got to go to Texas A&M for this necropsy. They're the best vets around, and they're going to be the ones to do this." I've reached out to a private citizen who's volunteered to fly us in his plane to Texas A&M. So I put my dog in my car. I drove from that shooting site to my house. I met my wife in the driveway, kissed her, hugged my kids, told her briefly what happened, got back in the car, drove to the airport, loaded my partner up, got on that airplane. He sat in my lap the whole time. We landed in College Station, and a lieutenant from the Brazos County Sheriff's Office met us on the tarmac, lights and siren. We got into his car. I'm still holding my partner, lights and siren to Texas A&M. And when I got to Texas A&M, the Texas A&M Honor Guard was standing by at the vet clinic to receive us. And they posted somebody with him the whole time.
Wow.
So he goes through the necropsy. He's cremated. And then those dudes give him a full honors procession from College Station all the way back to North Texas. I'm talking like 3 hours.
Wow.
To the memorial service, full on memorial service, everything. That dog saved our lives. We all, those 3 troopers and 2 deputies and I, still to this day, wear a patch on our vest that's got a paw print and Pepper's name. That bad guy wanted to kill one of us, but thankfully he had to go through Pepper first. And, for me, that was a critical moment in my career. I went on to get another dog after that, handled 3, but it was really, really, really hard after that. I didn't know it really at the time, but it was a lot harder on my family than I realized. And so my wife started to very gently and with a lot of grace and kindness start to let little hints slide like, "Hey, I would really look forward to the day where you're not going out and doing these tracks in the middle of the night when you're not." I mean, because we're hunting the worst of the worst with our dogs. And I didn't realize what kind of toll it was taking on my family. I had a passion for leadership. I saw things that I thought could be better. And so I went back to school, ended up, getting my degrees and things and promoting. And so, the kind of the capstone of my canine career was 3 dogs, rose to the sergeant level within that unit. And it was great. I did that for about 10 years. And so I think that has given me a certain perspective that I can lead with. I can't relate to everything. No cop can. We all kind of have our things that we end up specializing in. But for me, the bulk of my career was spent at the street level, working alongside street officers. And so I get that. I understand that role. And I try to bring that, as a chief.
Wow.
And that's why you're a copper's cop. Because you understand the daily grind and struggle of patrol. And that is amazing. And you said something earlier about how you like to lead with empathy, and you really care about your community and the trust of your community. And a citizen lending his freaking plane, that is a testament to your guys, your agency, and the people who work within your agencies, testament to community service. And that is not something that you can say for every agency, right? Sometimes the citizens hate you, but your citizens love you because you guys are out there doing the work every day to show them that you can be trusted, and that their trust is sacred with you guys, because you're not going to abuse it. And that's amazing. And wow, I gotta say, hats off to Texas, God, country, and community. That is amazing. And at no point in your story did you talk about Pepper as just your dog. That was your partner, and that is amazing. So
I'll say this too. I am disheartened when I hear about agencies or states. I won't call anybody out, but there are some states where assault on a police canine is assault on a police officer, right? Murdering a police canine, murdering a police officer. They are viewed as a member of the department, because even though it's a canine, it's a dog. It is, it's an animal that has been called into service and undergone training and has a special bond with a police officer and with the department, and all the things that we as cops know. It is really disheartening when I hear about agencies or states where canines are treated as tools. They're treated the same way a patrol car is treated. And I'm glad to hear that the great state of Texas doesn't, at least the officers, the rank and file, the departments themselves, they show the respect for a fallen canine partner that they deserve. And man, I don't even know how to say that. I don't even know how to empathize, or I cannot imagine. I've worked with lots of canine handlers. One of my mentors was a canine handler. I worked with the canine department a long time. I actually said I probably couldn't be a handler because I don't think I could do the stuff in my personal life. I don't think I could do the squared away things in my off hours that canine handlers need to do to make sure their dogs are working dogs. That's an extra level of sacrifice, and I just didn't think I was built for it. Otherwise, I loved working with the dog handlers. So I don't even have the words to fathom. I know how I felt, and I know how I had to be there for my mentor when he lost his partner of 10 years to old age. I can't imagine losing your partner of 7 weeks to a gunshot when it was done in service of saving your life. So, man, anyway, well, thank you for sharing that story. I mean, I was not expecting that when you told me you had a couple of stories you wanted to tell. So,
it's very sad, but very well delivered, very well spoken. I mean, that was amazing.
Oftentimes departments get heat for their canine unit. Sometimes the community wonders, like, what is the purpose of this? Why are we spending so much money on this training and these dogs and these cars? And I think Pepper's story, and I said this at his memorial, I spoke directly to elected officials, chiefs, and said, if you have ever questioned why and the value of a canine program, I'm here today to ask you, what would this day have been like if we were mourning an officer? If it were not for Pepper, that would have been the case. And so we're here, sadly, to mourn his loss, but his sacrifice ensured that 5 officers went home. And there's nothing more that I could give you as a decision maker than that to attest to the value and importance of a good canine unit.
Wow. Man, you were chiefly, even as a patrol cop or a patrol sergeant, a canine sergeant. You were chiefly then.
I don't know about that.
No, but that speech right there, takes some balls. If you are going to, as a sergeant, a canine sergeant, and you are at a memorial for your partner that you just lost of 7 weeks, and you have the gall to fucking stand up to everybody, all these elected officials, and talk to them directly like a man, and like a member of the department at the same time, that just shows leadership on another level, that you are in a position that you were supposed to be in, and not everybody is made for that position. And luckily they found the right person, the right fit, because I don't know of any person that would stand up like that and speak directly to elected officials like that. That is amazing.
If I didn't do it, then what was his death for?
Exactly.
Like, his death provided an opportunity to educate, inform,
Yep.
I mean, all kinds of other things, completely outside of saving my life.
Right.
But I would have felt tremendous guilt had I squandered the opportunity to speak to people, and advocate on behalf of the profession and canine handlers everywhere. Um,
Well, I would say that showcases your empathy and compassion for what you do in your service. I mean, that's just
Well, JT,
yeah.
I appreciate you coming on. Would you be willing to come on again? And I know you have other great stories being a cop in Texas and making it to the level of chief, but we also would love to talk to you about your service in the Navy and how you became a law enforcement officer. So if you enjoyed this as much as we did, we'd love to have you back and we'll chat with
yeah,
you.
you bet. I'd be happy to.
Right. Well, we also like to make sure we give our guests a chance to, and I mean, in some way, this whole episode was a dedication to your canine partner, but we wanted to give our guests a chance to dedicate their episode to a fallen brother or sister officer. And you have a dedication, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So, in addition to Pepper, obviously, I would love to dedicate this episode to Sergeant Randy White of the Bridgeport Police Department. He was killed in April of 2009, murdered by a suspect fleeing in a vehicle. Bridgeport is where I was born and raised. That's where I went to high school. That was where I became a dispatcher, and that's where I became a police officer. And so, Randy's death has impacted that whole community. It was very transformative within the police department. And so, goes out to Randy, his wife, and his daughter.
Well, rest easy, Randy and Pepper. We've got it from here.
Wow.
And I guess, like I always say, we'll keep dedicating them until there's no one to dedicate it to. And sadly, I don't know that day will ever come. But as long as there are willing men and women who are going to stand up voluntarily and stand in the gap. If anybody ever wants to know this, we've talked about it before, but the thin blue line is about the people we were just talking about. It's not just about us, but the thin blue line was a phrase coined to represent the blue represents the navy blue uniforms of most police agencies, but it became a representative symbol for all of law enforcement. And the thin blue line is the line that law enforcement officers create between order and chaos, between good and evil, between crime and lawlessness versus law and order. And something you mentioned earlier kind of spoke to me. Not everybody is built for this job, right? If you choose to get into this profession, if you choose to get into law enforcement, you choose to get into firefighting, you choose to get into military service, you're built. Most of the time, you're built different, right? That doesn't mean there can't be, like we talked about at the opening of the show. That doesn't mean there can't be people who get into this profession for the wrong reasons. But nobody wants to ferret those people out and get rid of them more than good cops, good firefighters, good soldiers, good Marines, good airmen, good sailors. So the next time you decide to motherfuck a cop and you have never been a cop, or for you rank and file, the next time you decide to motherfuck your sergeant, or for the sergeants who motherfuck their lieutenants, and on up, remember, they might be dealing with shit you have no concept of.
Right.
Because it's not until you get there that you actually have to deal with it. So I use this phrase a lot. I have a partner who he doesn't work for the same agency that I work for, but we work our departments partner together. So I work with him a lot. And he gave me this phrase that I love. It's he's not the first person to coin it, so you may have already heard it, but it's seek to understand before seeking to be understood. Because if you seek to understand, then that might change how you seek to be understood.
Yeah.
You may get new information. So I appreciate you coming on as a chief and anybody that's in any other rank or any other service, because you provide insight into that's one of the reasons why we spent 20 minutes just picking your brain. You provide insight into a world that, again, is a very limited world. You're one of 700 something people in the state of Texas, and that's a big state, you know. So I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you sharing your experiences, and I appreciate you reminding the rank and file that listen to our podcast that there are good chiefs out there and there are good administrators out there, and I will say the same thing I said to my mentor, who was a canine handler, the one I spoke about, when he called me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about promoting to lieutenant. I'm thinking about taking the lieutenant's test. What do you think?" And before I could even think about it, I said to him, "As long as you remember that if you get promoted, you need to be the lieutenant we always wanted to work for." And that's what I opened with, is you as the chief. Are you the chief you always wanted to work for? Because now that I'm in that administrative position, I try to be the supervisor, the administrator that I always wanted to work for. You don't have to be spineless. You don't have to have the spine removal when you promote. You don't have to have the frontal lobotomy when you promote. You just have to remember where you came from and then be willing to explain your decisions. They may not agree with you, and they may not even like it, but they'll understand.
Yeah.
So
put it this way. There are only 3,895 chiefs of police in the United States. And that's not including sheriffs. That's chiefs of police.
So 365 million Americans, 750-ish thousand police officers, only 8,000 chiefs.
No, 3,895.
3,800 chiefs.
Just under 4. Yeah.
3,900 chiefs. Just under 4,000
That's
chiefs.
That's an insight of something that
you
never really get to do.
Yeah. So JT, do you have any, I don't want to put you on the spot, but as we close out, the floor is yours. You just, any message you want to deliver to the cops, the potential cops, the people that are young and listening to this, that are thinking about getting into law enforcement, the wives that listen because they don't get to understand their husband's jobs, the wives that are at home while their veterans are deployed, the anybody listening that maybe doesn't understand, the floor is yours to give them any thoughts or messages that you feel are important to deliver.
Well, I feel like I have a lot of advice to give, but I'm going to try to focus it in one particular area. And that is on trying to end your career as whole as when you began. Inevitably, it's like anything. And I use the analogy of a cut to explain this. You know, if you're playing in the woods and you get a cut, as long as you take care of it, it'll heal. You'll be fine. If you break your arm and you don't go to the doctor, will it heal? Yes. But is it going to heal correctly? No. And is it possible to fix it? Yes, but it's going to take more time, more surgery, versus if you get that addressed right away, it'll heal. There may be a scar, but there won't be any lasting issues. It'll work just like it's supposed to. The same is true with you and your career. Along the way, you're going to get cuts. You may even get some broken bones. You may have some traumatic things that come your way. As long as you will deal with them, you can heal. You can be whole. You'll have the scars, but you'll be okay. And you'll be as whole as we can get you when you reach retirement. Where things are going to go wrong is if you ignore those problems, those issues, you don't go see someone, you don't, get it treated, and then it becomes a much bigger problem. So
I love that analogy.
and treat those injuries as they come, take care of them, bandage them, clean them. It's all part of the analogy, but hopefully you and your viewers can see what I'm getting at. You have
And
to
it's
take care of yourself. You have to prioritize your family. Um,
Yeah.
for those young officers, for those spouses, um, especially those young officers that were married before they came into the profession.
Mhm.
Your brothers, sisters, you need to realize that that person you love was there for you before this profession, and you want them to still be there for you when you're done.
Yep.
You can't do that without prioritizing them and taking time to invest in them, invest in your relationship. It's hard enough. You don't need unnecessary discord at home. So
Mhm.
take care of yourselves, take care of your families. Retirement is the goal, and making it there as whole as possible is what we want for each and every one of you. So take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Let's make it to retirement.
And I love that analogy. I want to tag up on the wife thing because I had a chief that used to say, "We wear the badges, the wives carry them."
Yeah,
Right?
Mhm.
Spouses carry them.
that's so true.
Yeah.
And
They carry
I
all of our scars
yeah, and I have
that we
I want
can't see.
I want to tag up on something you said about if you were married before you came on the job. Because it reminded me of something that I think is very important that adds to that. So real quick, we have a friend of the show, been on the show, right? I talked to his spouse. He went through a very traumatic incident that almost killed him. And as a result, he ended up going from one public safety career to another. He made the decision, I'm done with part A, I'm going to move in, transition into part B. And he changed careers, but still stayed in public safety. And I'm trying to make this as vague as possible because I don't want to dime him out. But I talked to his wife, and we were talking about some of the stuff I'd been through, some of the stuff my wife had been through as a result of my job. And then we were
Mhm.
talking about some of the stuff he'd been through and some of the stuff she'd been through. It was a result of his job. And I, my wife asked her, so how did you get through it? In other words, she was opening the floor for the wives to talk about, because my wife had been through it and she knew how she had gotten through it. She was curious to
Right.
find out how his wife had gotten through it and how their marriage survived. And I'm going to tell you one of those most profound things I've ever heard from a spouse of somebody in public safety going through a hard time. It was after the fact. Their marriage was good. They had survived it. They've been married almost as long as my wife and I have been married, maybe a little bit longer. And she looked my wife square in the face and she said, I knew the man he was before this shit happened to him.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
needed to help him be that person again.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, boys and girls, if you have a spouse that sees you that way and you're in this career, you have gold and you need to hang on to that person. And you need to never let the job and the shit that this job drags you through become
Mhm.
bigger than that person is. That person is the most important person in your life.
Yep.
So,
Couldn't agree more.
and
100%.
I've said it before, all those friends you had before you became a cop, all those friends you had before you became a Marine, all those friends you had before you became a Navy SEAL, all those friends you had before you became a firefighter, keep
Keep them.
those friends. Stay friends with those friends because they are the ones who will look you in the face when you get too big for your britches and go, motherfucker, I knew you when you stole a candy bar from Rite Aid. Don't give me that shit. I know.
It's
Don't
always
get
Rite Aid.
Do not forget where you came from. I remember when you stole a Playboy from the liquor store on the corner. I know you. They will
Yeah.
call you on your shit because they knew you when.
They
And
keep
I
you
think
honest.
part of the reason celebrities implode is because they lose that. Everybody's willing to do anything they can for them because they're afraid to lose the gravy chain of the celebrity and the money. Cops don't have that. Nobody's afraid to call you out just because you're not on they're not on your payroll. So the only reason your friends are going to ditch you, the ones that you made before you became a cop or before you became a soldier or a Marine or before you became a firefighter, The only reason they're going to ditch you is because you change and become a dick.
Yeah.
So don't change. Be authentic. Be the person you are. So that's all I wanted to tag up with. Chuck, what do you got for us?
Well, I want to say all my friends are cops. That sucks for me.
Hey, I'm not a cop anymore.
Well, no, yeah, but like you knew me before. Like
I know.
Most
John
of them
knew you.
became cops.
John knew you
just
before you became a cop.
Right, but he is a cop.
But he knew you before you became a cop.
Yes,
and he'll
he
still
keeps
call
me
you a
honest.
dumbass.
But I want to say, JT, thank you so much for coming on. We look forward to having you back on. I'm going to say something real quick as we're getting ready to close out and read the ending statements. You need to make sure, everybody who's listening, you need to make sure that your mental health stays in check. It is no different than training any other part of your body. You need to be mentally training. And if that means you need to be fucking talking to someone on a weekly basis, monthly basis, bi-weekly basis, that's what you should do. You need to understand when your glass is half full as opposed to half empty. Because when it is half full, that means you're starting to get to your breaking point, and that is not good because it's going to start to spill out onto your family. And back to what JT and Tom were both saying about that significant other in your life, whether it be a man, woman, whatever. Your significant other plays a crucial role in your success. And you need to make sure you guys are both on the same page and they understand the tolls of this job. And the tolls are not always going to be physical. They are going to be shit you cannot see, and you will not be able to see them. But that person who sits with you every single day, every single night is going to notice them. So when they bring it to your attention, be aware, have that self-awareness to understand shit might not be right. I might not be right. You are too close to see. Keep that in the back of your fucking brain housing group and understand that they are going to be the ones to show you and tell you. It's your job to listen and keep that open ear and open mind to be like, man, maybe I need to go talk to someone. And that is what you need to do, because that is what's going to keep you mentally healthy and mentally sharp, because the shit that we're going to deal with on a daily basis, whether you're in the military for a career, law enforcement for a career, any type of first response, definitely a firefighter, EMT, and paramedic, you are all going to experience loss, death, and crazy shit that's going to happen. And it's going to affect you in a way that you don't know. And you might not think it affects you, but it does. So be aware. And just, I can't stress that enough. Pay attention to those signs and pay attention to your loved ones. They're going to tell you, and they might be unapologetic about it, but have that wherewithal to understand they're not doing it to be mean. It's coming out of a place of love. And I want to say thank you to all today for tuning in. Thank you to all of our listeners and guests and everything like that. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow us on Instagram at war_stories_official and our Facebook at War Stories Podcast. If you're already following us, we'd really appreciate it if you could share our post and help spread the word. You can also check us out in the link in our bio on both platforms to find all of our social media, our media links, and our website. Our podcast is available on all major streaming platforms, including YouTube. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button, hit that notification bell on YouTube. That's the way you're going to get notified of all episodes and new things coming down the pipe, especially if you want to see us. If you like to support us, head over to our website at www.warstoriesofficial.com. Grab some merch. Do you have a story to tell, or you know someone who does? We're always looking for law enforcement, correction officers, dispatchers, firefighters, medics, and veterans, but also those ER nurses and ER doctors. We want to feature you on the show. If you're interested, email us at booking.warstories@gmail.com and share your story. We'd love to have you on. If you know someone who'd be a great fit, please send them our way. Also, check us out on TikTok at www.tiktok.com/@warstories.
Before he gets banned.
Yeah, and our producer's LinkedIn. If you also want to be featured on the show, go to linkedin.com/war stories podcast. Thank you again for all the support. Stay safe.
And before I use my usual tagline, I wanted to add one more thing, because since we have a chief on the show, I'm gonna tell you, rookie, off probation me would be mad at 50-year-old me if I didn't do this. So JT, I'm gonna paraphrase Back to the Future. And at the end, there's this scene right before Michael J. Fox goes back to 1985, and he's saying goodbye to his parents, who he just got to fall in love. And he says, I'll paraphrase, hey, one more thing. If you guys ever have an officer, and maybe when he's 8 years old, he accidentally sets fire to the living room rug, go easy on him. So, JT,
You got
If
it.
you ever have a guy who maybe's looking at a day on the beach, maybe you let him serve it in 2 6-hour increments instead of a full 12.
Understood.
But hey, if you're one of JT's rank and file, because I'm hoping that even though we didn't talk about the name of your agency, I'm hoping that somebody in your agency hears this and hears what a good chief they have and what how lucky they are to be serving for a chief that I would absolutely 100% come out of retirement and put on the badge for.
That's a compliment.
You're lucky.
100%.
I appreciate
You are
that.
lucky. And I'm gonna tell you right now, if you do get a day on the beach, it wasn't my fault. I tried.
But know that you have a good chief.
You
He's a
do
copper's
have a good
cop.
chief.
Listen to him speak.
Thank you.
If next time I'm in the North Texas greater DFW area, because we do one of our locker room, we have the locker room show midweek where we talk about current events, and it has one of our friends who's a Navy veteran and one of our friends who has absolutely no affiliation with the military or law enforcement, who kind of is the everyman for us and keeps us humble again. He's a tattoo artist in Austin, and I need to make it out there for some work. So I may have to stop through and we'll have a beer.
Yeah, you bet. I would love that.
Yeah. Well, JT, thank you. And to our audience, until our next episode, come home with your shield or on it.